Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you all the books I read in October, as well as all the books I plan on reading in November. Potentially. Possibly. Maybe. I did not finish all the books I planned on reading in October. I believe the TBR I shared with you had 4 main books and 2 continuations, and I finished 3 of those, which isn't bad. The first book I read was The Unexpected Guest by Agatha Christie. Now, going into this, I did not realize that this was a play of hers that was adapted into a book by someone else. So, as I was reading it, something felt really off to me, and the premise was so good. Like, I wanted to love this book, but something felt off to me, whether it be the story, the characters, I didn't know. And then the end made me literally think that's a very Agatha thing to do. And that's when I discovered, I was like, oh, this is adapted by Charles Osborne, which it says on the book, but it's down here in tiny print. There's definitely parts where you're like, that's Agatha, but then there's other parts where you're like not connecting like you usually do. I don't know. I could just tell that someone's hands had touched this story. Next, I picked up The Postcard Killers by James Patterson and Liza Markland. For me personally, sexual content and language, harsh language, crude language, whatever you want to call it, it's not really my cup of tea. It's not what I love. And James Patterson, he probably isn't the worst about this, but it's in there. And on top of that, the story is pretty dark. Like, the murders are gruesome in here. Forewarning. But the thing is, Patterson has this style where the chapters are super short, like a couple of pages, and it reads so quick. I don't want to say he's not amazing, because I think he is a good writer at what he does, because you're in it, you're like, this doesn't feel amazing, and yet I'm up till 2, 3 in the morning finishing because I can't stop. It's so hard to explain, but he's not really an author that I would go for just because of personal preference. And yet, like, his stories, I can't stop reading because the way he does it, it's fast-paced, and you're right there along for the ride. Like, it's not slow at all, in my opinion. So I guess that's why I keep picking up his books. So, well done. The next book I picked up was The Queen by Stephen James. This is part of the Patrick Bowers series, which I love. If you're a fan of a show like Criminal Minds, something like that, you would love these books. And I think I've said this a billion times, but I can't tell you enough, because you get to read from the perspective of Patrick Bowers, who is the FBI agent. You also get to read from the perspective of the criminals, like the people he's searching for. And each book has its own story, but they're all connected in some way. And there's not only like criminology in these books, but there's also political intrigue, which normally wouldn't interest me, but you can't help reading. Like, they're just addicting. The final book I read in October was my most anticipated read of the Halloween season, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I loved this book. I had some people tell me that they lost interest and they couldn't really stick with it. So I was kind of hesitant, but at the same time, I'd heard such good things about it, and the whole circus theme, it was a real October vibe with sights and sounds of the circus and like fire and caramel and magic. I mean, it was insane. Like, I could not stop reading. I will say that the ending was a bit disappointing for me. I don't necessarily mind how Aaron wrapped up the story. The circus theme and elements and the magic and all that is what kept my interest. And I don't know, I feel like it all lost steam for me at the end. Spoiler alert, if you haven't read, don't listen to this. The kid named Bailey who takes over the circus, tell me that's not a nod to Barnum and Bailey. I don't know, like I googled it and no one's talking about it. Why? I caught on to it. Aaron, if I'm the only one, I saw it. The other two books that I mentioned in my TBR were Jane Eyre and The Cato Street Hangman by Anne Perry. Didn't finish. I actually barely read either of them. So, fun time. Still reading in November. For some reason, I'm having a hard time getting into either of them. I like Jane Eyre, but I guess I'm not in a mood for a classic. And I love mysteries, but this one just isn't pulling me in. And I don't know if it's maybe Anne Perry's writing style. I don't know. I hate it because I've been wanting to read her books for so long. Hopefully it gets better because I'm on chapter 5, page 93. It has plenty of time to get better. Another saving grace is that I have the first book from another one of her series, so maybe I'll like that one better. You never know. I don't give up on books easily because I feel like they could pick up at any point and I might stop and miss out. So I never really DNF books. I also really wanted to read Sleepy Hollow, but I just never got to it, unfortunately. And I'd still really like to read it, but I guess November's still a good time for that. But like once December hits, Sleepy Hollow won't really be on my mind. Let's be honest. I did not get to In the Garden of Beasts, Love, Terror, and an American Family in Hitler's Berlin by Erik Larson. It's about World War II. I really want to read this book. I think it's going to be very interesting. But subject matter like this isn't something that you're like, oh, it's not like Night Circus where you're like, yes, I'm ready, I'm excited. I think that this is an important subject to read about, and I really do want to read this. I mean, it's a New York Times bestseller, but I just, like, my heart wasn't in it. Every time I picked it up and tried, just like, I can't do it. So I'm just gonna wait on this one. I might not even finish it before the end of the year because we're getting into the holidays and I don't know if I can read about something like this during Christmas time. So I still want to read it, but it's just on the shelf for now. I also have multiple books by my bed that I have not finished. I really want to work on that this month. Like, that's my goal, is to work on books I have not finished. So far I failed because I keep picking up new books. It's probably because it was my birthday and I got some new books, but I'll talk about that in a minute. So, the books that are partly finished, besides the ones I already talked about, Tapped Out by Natalie M. Roberts, Death Takes a Holiday by Jennifer Harlow, The Yiddish Policemen's Union by Michael, I don't know how to say this, Michael Chabon? Chabon? I'm really sorry. Murder on the Cliffs by Joanna Chalice? I'm sorry. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling. I still haven't finished this. Why? It's really good. I'm just not... Ugh. I don't know. I actually have finished a book already in November. I read Murder on the Orient Express. This has 3 books in it, but I'm just showing you the whole thing. I loved it. There's nothing else to say. Agatha is the queen. These are the 3 books I got for my birthday. Cinder by Marissa Meyer. I loved Heartless. And this sounds different from what I usually read. It's like fairy tale retellings with a sort of like sci-fi aspect. So exciting. Hunting Prince Dracula by Carrie Maniscalco. Sequel to Stalking Jack the Ripper, which I loved. Really excited. And then the book I'm currently reading, Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This book is a lot like Cinder for me, where like the sci-fi stuff, I don't read that. But I've heard such great things about this book. The first page I was like, oh, this is different, very different. And here I am, over 200 pages later, and I can't stop. It is so addicting, so good. And the format, I'm sure you've heard about this before, but it's presented like a file of different documents. Like you've got emails, interviews. There's even some like flyers from their, I don't know, spacecraft, ship, whatever you want to call it. It is so cool. And I really like the slipcover. But when I took it off, as I normally do when I'm reading, so I don't ruin it, look, it's like transparent too. It's so cool. When I took it off, I was like, oh, this is so cool. It's like one of the documents in the book. Hopefully you can see that. But it has like marks on it, circles, kind of like when you get a paperback from a teacher. It looks cool even on the outside. On the hardcover, not just the slipcover, which I really like. I like when there's something on both because, like I said, when I'm reading a book like this, I take this off so I don't ruin it. So this is what I'm carrying around. So whether it's on my shelf or I'm carrying it around, it still looks pretty. And this is just like one of the coolest books I own. I don't plan on keeping up with TBRs and wrap-ups just because my reading has been up and down recently, but I might actually finish up the year with these because I have to finish 17 or 18 books to meet my Goodreads goal for the year. By the way, my goal is 50. Haha, I know. I'm sure to all of you, you're like, oh, 50. That's cute. Well, it's realistic because I'm someone who's prone to reading slumps, okay? Like, imagine if I had given myself the goal of 100. Impossible. I want to reach the goal, but I don't want to push myself because I've been struggling with reading slumps, and if I push myself, I'm going to make it worse. So I'm trying not to overwhelm myself with books. That's why I was excited to get these books for my birthday, because these are books that I've really been wanting to read. And reading Illuminae right now, it's, you know, staying up late reading, reading in the bath, reading everywhere, reading at work on my break. Like, I feel like myself again, which is great. And I'm trying to keep that spirit, you know what I mean? So I'm trying not to push myself because I don't want to lose that. I'm trying to follow my gut with books. That's my tentative November TBR. I would love to hear what you're reading in the comments down below and what you're loving so far in November. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the red button down below to subscribe. I'm trying to reach 200 subscribers by January 1st, 2018. So help me out and let's make it happen. Don't forget to click the bell to turn on your notifications. I will see you in my next video. Bye!